please go ahead and get yourself situated. We're gonna need our block or a pillow or something to sit on. Today's practice will be a continuation of our exploration in movement principle number six. Movement principle number six uh, discusses the bandhas, right? Or in Annie's words, she refers to it as the spinning wheels, right? In the movement principle or the smart flow handbook, um, uh, Annie presents it more as both a physical, but also introduces a kind of energetic layers of the practice, right, through these spinning wheels. Physically, what that looks like is a tucking of the tailbone, drawing in of the bottom ribs, and then drawing down of the chin, right? So there's these kind of spinning actions that are happening in the body. When these ideas were first introduced more exclusively with the physical body in movement principle number one, right, balancing the spines, the action, right, the physical action and cue were to push the back of the body into the front of the body, right? So when you do that, pressing the back into the front, that pushes you towards extension of your spine. And then you're gonna return back to center by pressing the front of the body into the back of the body, right? Um, and even that cue or that description of what's happening is very personal, right? Super personal. Um, and what I mean when I say that is that, you know, uh, it's even on a physical level, right, on the gross or superficial level, it's not for anybody else really to make that distinction, right? That even me as a teacher with my very limited experience in practicing my own self practice and teaching other people, um, that I'm not the one directly experiencing what you're experiencing, right? Even when we're talking about the superficial or physical aspect of this practice when it comes to yoga, right? And a visual or a more kind of direct example of that would be just like standing in Tadasana or when we're sitting, right, in Sukhasana, easy cross-legged seat, right? There can be on the outside, I mean, it's even a whole nother layer and dimension here, or another layer of filter, us being in separate places, right? You're just kind of watching me on the computer on your screen. So that's also another, um, uh, not necessarily barrier, but another lens that warps the reality of what I'm experiencing, right? So taking that for example, right, I'm just sitting here, um, and it could be simply just that, or within myself, I can be having this internal exploration and this internal kind of dialogue of sensing really what's happening, right? I could just simply be sitting here. You could just also just be sitting there. But then also, only you can tell, only I can tell that I'm engaging in that conversation, that movement principle, the movement principles are presenting, right? Like I can be the only one that can feel that I'm extending my spine and then pressing it in, right? So that I am embodying, I am applying, putting into practice, the idea of what movement principle number one is suggesting, right? Otherwise, if there was another person here with me, or if we were together in a classroom and we were all sitting in this certain way, um, there would be no way for me, or not even necessarily me, but somebody like, let's just say, just walks into the room. There's no way for them to kind of tell the difference between people just kind of sitting there and then people embodying and engaging in that uh, 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 inquiry, right? Engaging in that kind of inquiry of what movement principle number one is suggesting. And so now moving into the landscape of movement principle number 6, it gets even more subtle, right? Less physical. And so that, kind of means the practice gets even more personal, right? I'll be giving particular cues, right, as we move through movement principle number 6. Particularly, today's focus will be Mula Bandha, right, or Root Bandha. And it's really up to you, right? And really, from the very beginning, it's always been up to you. It's always been your own practice, right? But even more so now, because you're the only one that can tell whether or not, you're the only one that can tell and be firsthand experiencing the experience as you experience it, right? And so as we begin to move into the more mystical or magical and less physical, well, at least like with a physical body, it could be like, yeah, at least I can see that you have your arm here. I can see you have your arm like that, right? But then only really you can notice where your breath is, and notice the volume of your attention, right? The quality and the vibrancy of your awareness. And so won't talk too much. Won't talk too much anymore. But it goes. It's a little bit helpful to just kind of give everybody a kind of starting point, right? So you can kind of aim your attention in a particular direction. And so I also want to just caution you that, maybe if you're thinking that like, okay, when I'm doing this practice, I don't quite understand what's going on. I don't necessarily feel that, or I'm not connecting with that. It's okay, right? Because it's something that we are, you begin to develop over time, right? Like any relationship, it evolves and develops and grows in ways that you can never really kind of predict. And also another thing with that is the practice and the experience are not the words. They're not even your ability to conceptualize what they are, right? If you're thinking like, oh, I can't do this, or I'm thinking like, oh, I got it, it's not even that the way that you're thinking about it is not even the thing, right? It's the thing that just doesn't have any words, right? It has no explanation. It is what it is. One kind of way that I like to put it is that, a tree is not a tree because it thinks that it's a tree, right? Anything in nature, like the ocean is not the ocean because it thinks it's the ocean, right? That it's doing things that an ocean should do, or it's doing things like a bird is not a bird because it thinks it's a bird, right? It's not a bird because it's thinking that it's a bird, or it's doing things that make it a bird. It is what it is, despite the fact of whatever we call it, right? It is just what it is. And so, our thinking can only get us so far, but you are what you are, and you are who you are, and you are part of what you are a part of. Not because you can name it, right? But because you are. It just is. Yeah.
Are you talking in terms of our dharma, like to fulfill destiny or something like that? I think
well, that's an interesting topic. Can you share a little bit more about what this is kind of inspiring you? What are you thinking about?
Because a bird is a bird because he's a bird. He doesn't have to prove it's a bird, but because he's a bird, he sings, he flies, he does things that birds do. So if we live connected to our dharma, we are supposed to be doing what we came to this earth to do. And we don't have to do something else, just a state of being here. It's like, I don't know, I think was the card what that say to be or not to be, or someone, philosophers, but like it's very kind of, I can't even find the words, like profound meaning of I am a droplet. I go to the ocean, I still being myself, but within the ocean it's. And by the way, I love the meditation we did on Monday.
Great,
I love it. I didn't put it on the comments. I mean, I don't know if I was supposed to, but I'm telling you now, it's amazing what we're achieving now these days.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and then it's kind of hinted at also in like popular culture and stuff too. Like if you think of Yoda, he has a line that says like there is no trying, or there is no try, you just do it. You just are. And it's a pretty interesting and fascinating thing. I was talking to one of my colleagues a couple days ago about, in the moment, oftentimes it's our thinking and expectation of what we think we should be doing that creates the conflict, right? And so sometimes we cannot recognize why something is happening, even things that are almost inarguably terrible, um, but have a kind of a sense of meaning. And a more practical example of this is like, me experiencing something, like I used to live in a loft, right? So it's just a space that's just wide open and big. And in that space, I was able to become a little bit more practical and minimal in the way that I designed the environments that I put myself in a physical space, right? But this 10 years ago, I would have never thought that um, going through that experience was going to lead me to being able to design houses, right? Because me and my wife have been investing in real estate, but I never was like, oh, I set out to be interested or have any kind of interest in investing in real estate, but just these things that seem like they don't make any sense. In hindsight, you kind of look at the things, even things that just not even just don't make any sense, but you're just like in those moments, you're just, why the heck is this stuff happening to me? Like these are terrible things that, with a little bit of reflection, you can kind of almost see a little bit more with like the experience of your life. Like, oh, that made sense, that kind of prepared me and led me to this point in my life. Another example that I read out of a book, I forget what the author's name was, but essentially the idea that he was saying is a matter of like perspective, and that we are blessed but also limited by our own perspective, and he gives the example of an ant, right? A little ant. And in this illustration, the ant is like hungry. It's like on the brink of starving, right? But in that ant's perspective, they're just like, oh my God, I'm gonna die because I cannot find food. I cannot. Um, I don't know how I'm gonna persevere through this, right? But then you having like a different perspective, watching the ant, just like a few inches away, you see like breadcrumbs, right? And so already kind of like this different perspective in space and time, that in the ant's mind and experience, they're like, oh my God, I'm in a dire situation. But then from your perspective, you can very clearly see that if that ant just keeps going, it's going to get to where it needs to go, and so you can kind of take that and kind of chew on that for a little bit. But so that's kind of what, you know, kind of tying it back to what Maria is sharing, is that, you know, there is meaning and design in the things that we are experiencing. And we just got to kind of trust that, you know, not necessarily destiny. It's just kind of sort of closely related to that, right? Destiny, that there's things that we're experiencing that whether or not we understand what's going on, that it's leading us towards something with this kind of grand design. And so that's kind of connected and relevant to what we're talking about now here, is that, you know, we want to begin to develop and nurture this relationship that is less about kind of thinking or trying to manipulate our environment and becoming a little bit more in tune with it, right? In line with it. Just like the tree is a tree and the sky is the sky and the ocean is the ocean, right? You are you because you are you. Doesn't have to be any kind of conceptual or academic psychological understanding of what that is, right? That you are who you are because that's what it is, right? You are part of this natural order of things. And the more we kind of sit still, the more we can kind of sense that. But then also at the same time, you know, it's super subtle work and practice, and everybody is on different parts of that trail to that piece of bread, right? Maybe you didn't even realize you're on this trail, right? Well, what are the chances of us being here in this very particular moment, right? Together on the computer, even interacting in this way, right? Who knows? It's pretty crazy. But you don't have to really think about it. It's just like happening. And so many things have had to happen for this moment to happen, right? For even us to have this kind of technology, for us to even be able to figure out how to continue sharing ideas in kind of a classroom academic setting, right? It's too much to comprehend, right? And some things you just cannot really, or even needs to be, and cannot even be comprehended, right? By just kind of trying to work it out in your head. And likewise, this is one of the things, right? You can call it the soul or whatever, energetic, but there's something else going on that does not necessarily require us thinking about it, right? So let's start to feel it. Okay, so what we're gonna feel here, we'll start with the physical. We're gonna go through each of the three bandhas, right, of the three main bandhas. First one today, we're gonna continue with the root bandha or Mula Bandha. That has a physical location, and that is in the perineum, right? That's a good place to kind of start our investigation. The perineum specifically is that section, that area between the anus and your scrotum. So somewhere between your number ones and number twos, right? Somewhere in between that. If you're familiar and or practice this regularly, right? Kegels get pretty close to. Is very similar on the physical level of what we're going to be working on. We'll start the practice seated. My suggested seated position is Siddhasana, right? And Siddhasana, you're gonna take your heel, right? More traditionally, you'll be, it's not quite comfortable for me yet, my stage of practice, but essentially, right, more classically, the yogi will be sitting with the heel in the perineum, right? But I don't suggest that you do that or start off with that if you're not used to doing that regularly, right? So lift your hips up, you sit on your block or sit on a bolster. Try to aim your heels in front of each other. And then if you find that that's not the right place for you either, Or you can take Sukhasana or easy cross leg, shins, knees over the ankles. Right? So that's the physical positioning of our body. And then we'll open up the breath work with a little bit of Kumbhaka, or for that 4-breath practice, just to kind of get into the rhythm and draw attention and focus a little bit more centered around the breath. And then from there, I'll cue you to just kind of, once the attention is more framed, right, given a little bit more definition, we'll take that awareness and shift it into different parts of our body around the perineum. What else do I want to say about that? Oh, and the bandhas are accentuated during the end of the exhalation, right? So don't rush the breath. See if you can follow it all the way to its termination, and see if you can, maybe at first, the first couple rounds, or even the first couple practices, or maybe the first couple 1,000 times you practice this, it's very muscular, right? And that's fine, right? That's cool. But allow that to just kind of be like little triggers or beacons for your attention to build that kind of connection in these very specific parts of your body, right? And then as you kind of begin to progress, it becomes more finesse and soft and less physical, right? And now you can just take your attention and then just focus it on different parts of your body. Which has always kind of been the underpinning of the way that I teach the practice of yoga, right? The physical practice. But now it's just a little bit more focused and specific, right? There's always kind of a cue of the breath, but then now we're going to take that breath and center it around a very specific part of our body, right? So Mula Bandha, Root Bandha. Go ahead and find your seat, everybody. Get your hips lifted. Tilt your pelvis forward a little bit, right? So then that begins to push the back into the front. You're going to now take the front, draw it into the back, and then find that center point, right? Notice here that once your hips are leveled, it invites the spine to grow really tall. There's a natural dropping of the chin and then almost a lifting of the collarbone to greet that bow. In the top of the head, almost like you're a little skeleton with a string on your head. You're just kind of free floating there. With the arms, spread your fingers, take them down by your knees, spread the fingers super wide. We'll go ahead and start off with a couple easy breaths. Fix your eyes on something stationary. You're going to inhale all the way through your nose. Soft sigh out of the mouth. Soften the jaws. Keep the shoulders back, but allow the collarbones to soften downwards. Right. One more time. In through your nose. Soft sigh out of the mouth. Let's go ahead and close the eyes. Good. And then now just allow the breath to become natural, right? In and out through your nose. And let's begin to gather and focus that attention through sensation, right? So notice here, did you forget about your fingers? Continue to spread them. Engage your triceps to strain the elbows. Draw the shoulder blades back, and then allow them to get drawn downwards towards your hips. Notice here, kind of like a peeling of a banana, like your neck becomes a little bit more exposed, and the crown of the head sits nice and tall. Good. And then at this point, go ahead and pick any finger to touch together with the thumb. Let it be random. Okay. Notice if you just kind of naturally went to whatever you normally do, and then I invite you to just kind of switch it here. will give you a little different of an experience. Good. Fingers touching are soft. The other remaining fingers are at attention. Elbows are locked out. Good. Take a moment here. Notice sounds. Allow them to come and go. Notice your points of contact, the seat on your support, your wrists on your knees, the legs on the ground. Good. And then circle soft attention back to the breath. And here at first, wherever you feel it, maybe it's a passage of air through your nostrils. Maybe you sense it there in your throat. Maybe down in your belly. Maybe there's a rocking in your pelvis. Can you feel it there? Maybe in the chest, all the way up to the collar. And for now, there's no right location, but instead, it's that exercise, that relationship with just noticing. Notice if you're trying to think your way into feeling it, and then just simply feel it. And as we did on Monday, we'll begin to establish our base breath. When you're ready, next time, exhale everything all the way out. And then an easy inhale, begin to count. How long, how many seconds does it take you to inhale? Easy exhale back out of the nose. And then do that for 3 more rounds. 3 rounds. Just focusing here on counting the inhalation. Slow the inhale down. You know, it might be tempting to constrict the nasal passage or, you know, really suck that breath, but really soften up on the body and just notice here. Notice the breath climbing up through the body. And the less that you think about trying to direct it, the freer it is to move in and out of the body. And once you've established that base breath, let's layer it onto the top of the inhale, right? Holding for the ratio of 1.5. Right? So if you had a count of 4, then your hold at the top is 6. Doing one more round like that. Just ramping up from the inhale to the hold at the top at a 1 to 1.5 ratio. Good. On that next cycle, we'll layer that duration across The exhalation, using those same numbers, this may be different for you, right? But just as an example, might be 4, 6, and then a 4. And it's common, right, to need to slow the inhale down a bit and then allow the exhale to pace right alongside that inhalation. Meaning sometimes it's easier to exhale for a long time. See if you can mirror that inhale. At the next round, we'll draw that fourth layer at the bottom of the exhale. So that mirrors now the top of the inhalation. Using our example, that'll complete our kumbhaka or box breath with a 4, 6, 4, and 6. We'll engage in the breath in this way for 2 more minutes. Spread those fingers. Remember the elbows straight. At the top of your next inhale, notice here the collar rising and the chin wanting to naturally welcome that lift in the chest. It's not necessarily a jamming of the chin down into the collar, but a nice, good, soft, level head. And as you breathe here in this fashion, continue to follow the breath. Okay? A simple observation. And it's normal, it's natural to get distracted. Right? But with this kind of structure and discipline, we're slowly, little by little, inviting that attention to stick around a little bit longer. And in collaboration with that structure and frame, becomes less and less about squeezing or engaging the muscles, right, of respiration. Now see if you can just follow your breath, right? As you inhale, feel like you're filling like a cup from your hips, tipping, your belly inflating, your ribs up to your collar, lifting to meet the chin. And then as you exhale, notice that cup emptying. Almost like a magic cup, right? You're not pouring the cup out, but it's just slowly decreasing in volume. All right, last minute. All right, in these last few moments in this structure, see if you can keep the collarbone rising here, right, at the top of the inhale. Keep the spine super tall, right? That exhale is going to want to flex you or pull the front of your body short. Keep your collarbone lifted as you exhale. And then when you begin to transition out of the bottom of the exhale, yes, you can allow the front of the chest to flex or collapse just a little bit to let that final pieces of exhale or breath to exit. And then we just follow that breath up again, right? Last round. And then now here, right, we'll continue that framework, that 4-part breath, but now we're going to draw the attention to a little bit more specific location. So at the end of your next cycle, at the end of your exhalation, when there's no more breath left, allow your attention to become curious about your number 1 muscle, right? Imagine what does it feel like when you really need to use a restroom, but that gas station you stopped at, man, they just are not letting people use the restroom for some reason, right? So you got to hold it. Let's start in that place. Maybe at first, the first couple rounds, you're really squeezing and contracting those number 1 muscles. But in the next 2 rounds, see if it can become less and less muscular, that it's almost a natural center or focal point at the end of your exhalation, right? That your focus, your consciousness simply is attracted to that area of your body. Good. And then keeping that box breath that we built, that you built, we're going to stay with our attention in that area, but now you're going to draw it to your number 2 muscles, right? Same scenario, right? But just slightly different part of the body, right? That you got to use the restroom again, but for whatever reason that it is, it's just not happening at this moment. So continue with that Kumbhaka 4-part breath. And again, maybe this first couple rounds at the end of your exhale, you're really kind of, there's this kind of muscular action feeling like your glutes are firing. Sphincter is contracting. Right? But in the next 2 rounds, see if you can experience that as more as an observer, right? That you're not trying to manipulate the experience, but just kind of sensing here. Yes, when I just kind of notice, step back and observe the breath is magnetized to that spot, right? It gravitates and something happens. Good. And then keeping that framework again, right? 4-part breath. Now we're going to find and locate that space in between those 2 locations, right? Between the number 1 and number 2, right? Where is that halfway point at the end of your exhalation? There's this feeling of kind of a tenting, right? A lifting through the perineum, or the center part, that space between your 1 and 2. And again, it's okay if it's a very physical thing, right? You're contracting and squeezing. It's a good place to start. The body is a very profound tool, instrument. Right, so 2 more rounds like that, 2 more rounds right in between the 1 and 2. Remember, stick to your ratio, 1, 1.5, 1. At the end of that exhale, a gathering of attention. Now from here, right, we'll keep this sense of awareness in this location. And I invite you to keep your eyes closed, right? If you need to, you can open them just to kind of get a little bit of reference. Right? But we're going to take it nice and slow here. It's going to be all familiar poses. The foundation will be Surya Namaskara A, or Sun Salutation A. There's some very slight variations, right? But it's going to all be poses that we're familiar with. All right, so keeping those eyes closed, we're going to go ahead and take ourselves off of the bolster. You're going to come onto hands and knees. Now we're just going to begin to move the body in a way that the breath travels. So the count isn't as strict, but there's still very clear, defined 4 parts to the breath. Right? So when you're ready, hands and knees, slowly inhale, come into cow. Take your time all the way through. Remember, it took you 6 seconds. That's how long it's going to take you to get all the way to the end of that cow. Then as you exhale, again, 6 seconds to get all the way to the end. And then see, maybe again, it becomes a little bit muscular, but notice the breath ending in Mula Bandha between the 1 and 2. Right, so just a couple rounds like this. Some people's count might be a little shorter, a little bit longer. Doesn't matter, right? You got your eyes closed. And see if you can move at the pace that you just created with your breath. It's a nice soft touch, kind of like you're just running a feather over your skin. That's the softness and the level of awareness there at the end of the exhale as it becomes more and more attracted to Mula Bandha. Just do 1 more round like this. Good. Inhale last time into your cow. Tuck your toes. As you exhale, downward facing dog. Take your time. Remember, it's going to take you however long you just created to get there. Good. Make those adjustments. Squeeze the arms in. Adjust your feet. Well, again, it's not too technical. It's never been about perfect anyways. Finding that place where we can redirect the attention back to that breath. 2 more rounds of breath here. Notice the movement of your pelvis. The breath traveling all the way down as you exhale. With a light touch, like a feather, between the 1s and 2s. And that feather is your awareness. On your next inhale, set yourself up on the balls of your feet. As you exhale, begin to step your feet all the way up towards the hands. Don't be too fast. Follow the exhale all the way down. Find that feather. Inhale, push your hands to your shins. Kind of emulating that cow. Exhale, fold back down to the floor. Feather, everybody. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana, half forward fold. Good. Exhale, full forward fold. Good. Last time like that. Half fold. Full fold. Remember those spaces in between. Good. Take your time. Find your inhale all the way up. Stretch your arms up over your head. Press the palms together. Exhale, hands come down the center. Find that feather here. Good. Arms out to the sides, back up overhead. Inhale. Easy exhale, back down the center. Palms continue to press. The attention lands like a feather. Last time, arms lift, Urdhva Hastasana. Good. Exhale, fold all the way down. A light, feathery touch. Half fold. Plant hands as you exhale, step back to plank. Even here, follow the feather. Inhale. Knees grounded, lower to the floor. Exhale, exhale, exhale. Even follow all the way here to the end. Find the feather. Take your time. Takes the entire time to inhale up from Cobra. Pause in that sweet space. Exhale all the way down. Takes you the entire time to get back to the floor. Forehead lands. Light feather, Mula Bandha. 2 more times like that. Inhale, Bhujangasana. The whole time, that same 1, 1.5, 1, 1.5. Good, last time, Cobra. Forehead taps the floor. Between the 1s and 2s at the end of the breath. Tuck your toes. Inhaling, pressing back towards child's pose. Exhale, downward facing dog. Now follow your breath, 5 cycles. It becomes less and less about, am I doing this right? Is my hand in the right place? Is my foot? And more like, okay, what is my breath telling me? How can I adjust so that there is a nice, smooth rhythm and pace of the breath?
And when you're ready, balls of the feet. Exhale, take your time all the way to the top. Step the feet, find that fold. 2 times, half forward fold, lift the chest. Uttanasana, full forward fold. One more time, inhale, half fold. Allow the feather to grow, to be light. Then as you exhale, attention on that feather, nice and graceful. Good, we'll stand, arms reach out to the side, Urdhva Hastasana, reach. Hands down the center. Attention follows the breath down to the root. One more time. Urdhva Hastasana, arms reaching up. Hands come down the middle. Attention, rest, feather. Arms down by the sides. Arms reach. We'll fold back down. Half forward fold. Plant the hands, plank. Inhale. Use those knees, lower to the floor. Cobra, everybody, 2 times. Inhale. Slow descent. One more time, inhale. Exhale. Good. Toes tucked. Inhale towards child's pose. Downward facing dog. Where is that sense, right? If you have your eyes closed still, right, you might get a little bit more clarity to the path of the breath. All the outside superficial things, the gross body maneuvering, right? And all these different changes, different shifts in the body, the physical body. But is there something deeper, more steady, unchanging, boundless, and infinite? Last time, balls of the feet. Exhaling to the top. One time, half forward fold. Full forward fold. We'll rise, arms reach, Urdhva Hastasana. Down the middle. Arms extend up overhead, or flex overhead. Let's fold down to the ground. Half forward fold. The hands plant, plank.
Lower to the floor. Takes you the entire exhalation. Cobra. Back to the ground. Towards child's pose. Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. Shift the knees back down to the floor. As little movement as possible, right? Go ahead and get yourself back onto your seat. Blocks are suggested. All right, and then just jump right back into that opening position. Wrists at the knees or upon the lap. Nice, full, easy breaths. No more structure, but notice and sense maybe how the breath, with just a little bit of observation, naturally, right, follows that sequence. And then now from here, just a few moments, we will just count the breath. You don't have to change anything about it. Just notice it as it comes into the body and exits. The inhale is 1. Exhale is 2. Then 3. Exhale 4. Just like that, all the way up to 10. Once you reach 10, you just circle all the way back down to 1. Counting in that pattern, not changing anything. We have relinquished the frame of the Kumbhaka or 4-part breath. Simply counting. And again, it's perfectly natural to begin to wonder, right, or get distracted by whatever. It could be a physical thing, a sound, or a mental thing. Notice that that happens and just default back, right, to the counting. It's really, truly as simple as that. The technique is simple. But the wandering mind has a lot of practice. Take your time, just count the breath, just for a few more moments. And And then now finally, wherever you are in the counting, just now allow the counting to fade. And give the mind the space to be free. It may remain steady and calm. Maybe it never was. But now, it just is. And then now with loving care, we draw the attention back, invite it through the senses. Notice the sounds, your points of contact, right? Your seat on the support, your hands on your lap, your legs upon the ground. Then the attention lands softly back on the breath. And then here together, we'll meet the hands in front of the heart center. Yeah. Bringing the mounds of your thumbs or the knuckles of your thumbs to the center of your eyebrows. This is just a nice pointed contact with the thumb to the brow. Sense this physicality of it, this very singular sensation, and how this centralized focus almost naturally puts everything else out of focus. Good. On your next exhalation, just drop the hands back down onto your laps. Notice the expanding there in the center of your brow. On our following inhalation, you just softly open the eyes, keep the eyes steady as we started. With a few blinks, we say to ourselves, we are no longer meditating. Rock and roll, everybody. Excellent job. Stay curious. Continue our exploration to move to Jalandhara Bandha, right, the chin lock. Before we part ways, try to find something of this size, right, this dimension. This is a massage ball. Racquetball ball is pretty close to this. A tennis ball could work. It's of similar size, but the firmness of the ball might be a little bit squishy, right? And what we're going to do with it is going to place it here on our throat, and we're just going to clamp it down with the chin right on top of the sternum, right at the sternal notch. So find something close to that. Right? You can even use an apple. That works too, right? But just have that ready. We'll draw our attention and explore Jalandhara Bandha or chin lock. Then we'll round that off with Uddiyana Bandha or the flying bandha. The bandha that is kind of the gateway of some of the more physical stuff like handstands and stuff like that. Makes things feel more graceful. Not necessarily easy, but it feels much easier, right? When we're connected, the physical things feel much easier when you're connected to Uddiyana Bandha. Cool.